We're here for another tournament in the TeaBreak. I'm Ros Satar from Britwatch Sports.
George Bellshaw from metro.co.uk.
And Rene Denfeld for MyTennis.
And it's been a bit of a day, hasn't it, lads? After all the drama and furore around Nadal's passing the longest set streak on a given surface, and by streak we don't mean running around in his kecks, but the fact that he actually won a whole load of matches, he then went and lost one. So the defending champion is gone, and with it we have a new contender, which is Thiem, who, by his own admission, hadn't actually really been playing his best tennis, but he certainly made up for it today.
Yeah. Fair. You go ahead. I'll go with the stuff you said in German afterwards. Go for it.
I thought he was absolutely fantastic, particularly in the first set. I thought he completely dominated with his forehand. And when he was forced into his backhand, he was coming up with big shots that were hitting the lines. He just kept hitting the lines in that first set. Really put Rafa under the cosh. Second set, I thought he not quite choked, but he wasn't quite as clinical as he was in the first. And Rafa, on a better day, I think, would have taken those chances that, Thiem left the door open. Rafa would normally storm through it. Today, Rafa was just a bit off, missing in the big moments, possibly fatigued from playing so much clay, mentally maybe more than physically. I don't know, but he just wasn't quite at the races, I didn't think. But Thiem was brilliant and shouldn't take anything away from him, really.
Yeah, it's fair to say that Thiem had a very, very good day. It's kind of interesting, almost ironic, that the last two sets that Nadal lost on clay were against Dominic Thiem 51 weeks ago in the quarterfinals of Rome. Now the circle closes. Again, he loses 2 sets to Dominic Thiem, this time in the quarterfinals of Madrid. So that is, well, Rafael Nadal fans might not appreciate it, but it's almost poetic. But for Rafa,
it appeals to our OCD at least.
No, but for Rafa, it was. I think it's very fair to say that it was an off day. Particularly for me, the second serve was the most striking thing. It was almost middle of the box all the time. It always set up. There was just no real bite to it that we've seen over the course of the past couple of weeks. And Thiem said that he just basically employed the same sort of mindset and the same sort of aggressive game style that he employed a year ago in Rome. That means hugging the baseline. That means taking the ball early. And by his own admission, he says, look, for me, it's more comfortable to fall a little bit further behind the baseline. I've got the big swing, so I need a bit more time. But today, push kind of came to shove, and he had to, and he executed well. And he was obviously very, very happy with this match, considering how patchy his form has been on the clay so far, and especially how badly he has started in his last 2 matches here.
Well, I mean, he now faces Kevin Anderson, who, of course, kicked us off with one of the most riveting matches of the day, which was Anderson-Dusan Lajovic. For a big guy, I think a lot of people have often written him off against clay. Yeah, the guy actually enjoys playing on clay. I just don't think... I think this suits his game because of the speed and the way that the ball fizzes. I don't know that he would have quite the same success in Rome and in Paris, but I think it should make for an interesting semi.
I think people like Anderson and Isner often get a bit of a bad rap on clay. I think for a big guy, clay can really suit you, especially when the ball sits up nicely. It's really in their range. I think on stuff like grass, the serve works really well for them, but a lot of the balls stay low, and it's difficult for them once they're in points to really pull off what they want to do. Here, Anderson today, I don't think he played that well, but he set up a lot of things on his forehand, short forehands back off that serve, and they just sat up quite nicely. I think on another day, he would have won that more impressively. So I think it'll be a tough match for Thiem, who's never beaten him, but they've not met on clay. Yep. Would expect Dominic to win, but Anderson's dangerous still.
Obviously, Zverev and Isner are still playing, but we did have another quarterfinal, sadly, which was Kyle. Well, I say sadly, it was Kyle and Kyle Edmund and Denis Shapovalov, and it was. I think what we're actually seeing, it's interesting that it's Thiem that took out Nadal, and they're kind of, we've got the Lost Boys generation, and then we've got this kind of Lost Boys 1.5, which was the Zverevs and the teams that never really seemed to sort of generate enough sort of power to move forward, except now, maybe. And now we've actually got the real next gen, which is Kyle Edmund, Shapovalov, Tsitsipas. beginning to come through. And I just think we've already seen some intriguing matchups between these two. And this was no exception. So unfortunate for Kyle. I think maybe the fatigue of all those runs in Estoril before he came out here, and the big 2 wins might have caught up with him. He seemed very sort of edgy right at the start. I think Shapovalov looked a lot freer with his hitting.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I did put it to him that whether the transition of playing two very, right-handed, two-handed backhand, similar styles in Goffin and Djokovic, then going to Shapovalov, the left-hander, the one-handed, the bit more kind of attacking, free-flowing player.
Flashy,
I think,
as well.
Yeah.
Someone who works up the crowd a bit more and who works with the crowd more, as opposed to Goffin, who's much more subdued as opposed to Shapovalov.
Yeah.
It's a difficult adjustment to make, I think, and particularly the lefty. I mean, Dennis has been talking all week about how he thinks being a left-hander on clay is a real advantage, and whether it is or not, if he believes that, he's coming into these matches with a really big mindset. And for a guy who's not won a tour level clay match before this tournament, the confidence is sky high right now, and I'm loving it. I think he's a great player. I think he's a breath of fresh air on the tour. I think he's the obvious player the mantle of the big 4 goes over to in terms of the character and the way he carries himself around, the style. I think he's a great watch. I think he's someone really impressive, and the fact he's doing it on clay already at a Masters event is just big for the game, because I didn't really see him being a great clay court player this early, and I don't think he did either.
No. I mean, he's charismatic as well. He's got the full package.
And I think it's good for him. It's good to see somebody who's not necessarily yet cut out to be a clay court player. I think he'll admit as much himself, even if he makes finals here, even if he, who knows, wins the whole thing. But he applies himself to it, and he says, look, I'm willing to give it a good shot. I'm willing to really work my butt off on clay so that I become better. So the mindset at his age right now, at 19 years old, it's good, and it's much better than some of certain other North American players who are just like, well, it's clay. Nope.
Yeah.
And he applies himself to it, and I think that's a big asset.
I'd compare his attitude to Zverev as well a little bit, because I think Zverev comes out a lot of the time and he's like, I should be winning every match, I should be perfect on every surface, I am the king. Whereas Shapovalov's a bit more like, I'm really happy with how I'm playing, but I know I'm aiming to win these Grand Slams in 2 or 3 years' time. I think he understands the process a little bit more, and he's pleasantly surprising himself.
Yeah.
Whereas Zverev, I think, is really disappointed by the fact that he's not gone beyond like the fourth round of a slam, and that plays on his mind a little bit more. So I think Shapovalov's mindset is really interesting, and if he can kind of surpass Zverev in slam terms, that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, let's withhold this discussion until the French Open, because I'm sure it's going to rear its sometimes pretty ugly head again in Paris.
Well, and luckily for you, Rene and I will both be in Paris, so you'll actually get to hear the two of us having a witter for a couple of weeks. But
oh my God, you're so going to enjoy hearing me complain and moan and whinge about everything. No, I promise I'll try and be personable and nice.
Listen, you know what? You haven't sat next to George for a whole week. You or no. I think the word that we're looking for, ladies and gentlemen, is anyway. On to, of course, tomorrow's women's final, where we will have Kiki Bertens, who seems to be a goddess on clay, against Petra Kvitova, who also seems to be a goddess on clay.
Just a goddess.
Well, she is actually. She's just amazing. I have all the time in the world for her. So you were in a press while we were galloping around catching Edmonds. So gen us up, Rene.
When it comes to Petra Kvitova, obviously Petra and Karolina Pliskova were the first match of the night session, playing a sometimes slightly nervy, not always they weren't always playing well at the same time, and both of them kind of admitted to it. Petra had a slow start. Karolina kind of never really was able to find her serve as well as she wanted to. Karolina said, I feel like I was almost a little bit overmotivated after the win against Simona, and also trying to get that win against Petra, who's obviously got this stellar record against Czech players. And Petra just was able to hang in there in the first set. I think that was very important, that in the second set she was just able to step it up a little more. And also say, look, I know that this was maybe, I was a bit tight at the beginning, but I was able to just get more into the rallies and bite my way into this match a little bit more. And I think it's been beyond impressive with what both of them have been able to do over the course of the past couple of weeks, with Petra winning Prague, Carolina winning Stuttgart, both of them having this 9-match winning streak, and Petra extending it to 10, and now she's going to face Kiki Bertens in the finals. But Petra very much set and impressed that this is going to be a much different challenge, because as we have all seen, I think over the past 2 years, but particularly this week, Kiki Bertens is a force to be reckoned with on clay.
She really is. I mean, Caroline Garcia had flown under the radar largely for the whole of this tournament. Hadn't dropped a set. Had been very impressive, very good aggressive play. Everything seemed to be coming right for her, and we were even daring to whisper about potentially a favourite for the French, and then it all seemed to come undone awfully quickly, very frustratingly for the Frenchwoman as well, where she just could not execute her game plan. And credit to her, once upon a time Garcia wouldn't have even had the nous or the wherewithal to try and do something different to get a foothold in the game. She did try, and it made absolutely no difference at all, to the point that I think it drove her on the point of tears practically. I don't think Kvitova is going to be quite that emotional, but what does worry me is fatigue. I mean, she looked awfully tired when Rene, Courtney and I went to see her at after midnight last night or early this morning rather. She looked very, very tired, very fatigued already, and Kiki just seems to she's got that euphoria obviously of having won, and is now in her biggest sort of title match. So
you never know how that's going to play, of course. Being in such a big final against such an opponent who's been there and done it so many times, you never quite know how that's going to go. But I've been really, really impressed with Bertens. She's taken out some very impressive opposition here, or at least on paper, big names. I think.
No, just I feel like also in terms of how they've been playing, it's
Sharapova particularly.
It's Sharapova, it's Wozniacki, it's Garcia, it's Sakkari. It's those are not some, I don't know, some random draws where you're like, oh, she had an easy draw.
Yeah.
She really punched her way through that.
Yeah.
But I mean, should we really be surprised about Bertens? I mean, she is a Roland Garros semi-finalist. She knows what it takes to win on the big stage. I think she's playing down this whole I'm just so happy to be here. I don't think she's just happy to be here to make up the numbers at all. I think she's going to go hell-bent for leather to end Kvitova's winning streak.
I'm curious to see whether she's on the big stage. Yes and no. I think sometimes there can be moments when she can get nervy. For example, at the end of the first set against Sharapova, I feel like she got a little nervy. On the big stage, remains to be a little proven to me. On the clay, absolutely no doubt, because she, in terms of her movement, I think there are very few out there on the WTA who move as efficiently and as well on the clay as she does. So if she can hang in there long enough in some of the points and survive the barrage of Kvitova ground strokes, I think she has a very good shot as well. Just like Petra, it's a matter of fatigue and maybe experience in the big moments.
I think comparatively to Pliskova as well, it's a really different challenge for Kvitova. They're just completely different game styles, and I feel like Pliskova's maybe got a little less of a plan B than Bertens, who's kind of got plan X, Y, and Z constantly on clay. You're never quite sure what to expect from her. So I think that will be an interesting matchup rather than two big sloggers.
So, all right, so predictions then.
Tough. I will go with... I'll go with Kvitova in 2 tight sets, but I am absolutely not sure. It could just as well be that Bertens wins it in 2. But it's just right now, just in case.
I said after she beat Sharapova, I think she's going to win at Bertens, so I'm going to stick with her.
You're going to stick with Bertens?
I'm going to stick with Bertens.
I think it'll be Kvitova in 3, but I think that will then leave her an absolute wreck for Rome. She'll go out early in Rome and come back as a tour de force in France, but I'd say Kvitova in 3. Brilliant. Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We'll hopefully get Rene to come join us tomorrow when we gear up and look for the men's final.
Yes, the Kevin
Oh,
Anderson,
the Kevin-
John Isner final.
This is
Yes,
not going
that
to happen
we're
because
absolutely all here for.
because Alexander Zverev is now serving for the match. So I will excuse myself.
Yeah.
I'll run to court and wishing you all good night and thanks for having us.
You've been listening to Rene, who's about to exit stage left, and
George Bellshaw.
literally stage left, and of course I'm Ros Satar from Britwatch Sports. Thank you for listening.